Welcome to yet another action-packed, exciting episode of the Trade Geek Podcast, brought to you by the World Trade Centers and our good friends at Cap Logistics. All I really do to get people on this podcast is I call friends of mine and I intimate that if they don't do it, I will tell incredibly embarrassing stories about them. And lo and behold, people just turn up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's true. It's very true. So I was talking to a mutual friend of ours today, who shall remain nameless, and I said, "Yeah, I've got Abby coming on today. Abby Freeman's coming on today." And I said, "She's like my only friend." It's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "She's the only person in my life that likes the same crap that I like." And we could talk about old school hip hop today.
Oh, please.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. And she's the only person who doesn't ask me stupid questions endlessly for money. So, you were a client, but contractually you can't be for another 10 months or 8 months until I'm done with my non-compete. But you know what I'm saying?
Yes, of course.
I never tire of talking to you, Abby, because you make me laugh. So everybody, Abby Freeman is with us today. Or do you go by Contino now? How does it?
Abby Freeman is good. Abby Freeman is good.
Okay, whatever. So Abby is with us today. And I met Abby through client work, but she is just as much friend, if not more so. You have a very bizarre job. So
is it bizarre? I'll buy it. I'll buy it.
You explain what you do, and then I will point out why it's bizarre. Go ahead, have fun with it. What do you do, Abby?
Okay. Presently, I do international business development and global strategic planning for a defense contractor in the aerospace world. I work right now mostly in the Indo-Pacific region, Indo-PACOM, AOR, selling ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance related equipment, modified aircraft, as well as some light attack aircraft, other military goods and services.
So can we just, so you're telling me that that's not interesting, that you basically sell spy aircraft and
you said bizarre. You said bizarre. I don't think that's
how many people do what you do, Abby?
I don't know. We don't all talk about it. So
I understand that. So I'm a well-traveled person. I have a lot of friends. I can count on one hand how many people I know that do what you do. And I know. Okay. So that's pretty weird, Abby. It's remarkable. Okay. It's a remarkable job. Now, above and beyond all of that, you also have a rather storied past regarding trade compliance.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a bit about how you stumbled your way into a job selling spy aircraft? Because whatever.
Sure. And I think when it comes to trade, I think most of us have stumbled is the right word. Tripped and fallen, maybe made some mistakes, and
kicked down a flight of stairs into.
Yeah, and fallen head first into this stuff. But I started my career with the U.S. Department of Commerce. I worked at the U.S. Commercial Service across a couple of their export assistance centers, helping small and medium-sized businesses get their products exported where they needed to go, doing market research and helping open doors for them through the U.S. Embassy network, getting things out in the world for those kinds of clients. And loved my job. It was a really exciting, first entry into the international world of trade. And I actually did intend to get in some level of international trade, but I didn't really know at that time what that meant.
What a lie. Yeah.
But what I found was that as much as I loved my job, I was really sad at the end of the day when my client went off and exported their products, and I wasn't there to see it and be part of it and pop the champagne with them in some, strange third world country or, wherever they might be operating that day. I felt like I was missing out on that end game. And so from there, I left the U.S. government and I worked for a couple of different commercial companies, ended up falling into trade and aerospace, and mostly aerospace and defense a couple of years later, and worked in what what we find most of ourselves in when it comes, I guess, in today's day and age and international trade is how do we do this without going to jail?
Yes. Preferably, that would be best case.
Right.
Nobody goes to prison, Abby. Yeah.
So day one, in one of my aerospace gigs, my boss came in and dropped an ITAR on my desk and just said, read it, know it, teach us all, and walked away for like 6 days. And so I read it and digested it, and as nerdy as it sounds, and I think you can respect this, I kind of fell in love with the law, and specifically international trade law, and found myself really taking that as a pretty major career move to jump into the compliance side of international trade, and found a solid niche there, and stayed in there for the better part of, well, a little over a decade, working in international trade laws and regulations. Almost went to law school. I had my schedule, I had my class load, and I was ready to go to start law school because I thought, I'm working in the regulations every day. I should probably go get a law degree, and went through the LSAT and that whole process and enrolled. And day one, I looked at my schedule and I said, I'm going to hate that class. I'm going to hate that class. I'm really going to hate that class. And I bailed and I said, no, this is not for me. I want to be on the business forward end of international trade, not the restrictive end. And that didn't drive me away from trade compliance. Surprisingly, it just meant that I kind of built my career around navigating the regulations effectively to build good business and to keep our international business and our international relations moving forward for the companies that I worked with. Really enjoyed that. And one day in my current company, one of our business development leaders came over and said, hey, I want you to come work for me in international business. And I kind of looked around like, is he talking to me? I'm the trade compliance girl. And he was talking to me, and I kind of did some self-reflection there, and I had a chat with him and had a chat with some of my colleagues, including yourself, Pete Mento. And what I quickly found with some self-reflection was that while I navigate the regulations really well, I also like to run my mouth. And the opportunity to blend those two things together, and do a bit more business forward thinking and strategic thinking on the trade side, as opposed to strictly trade compliance, was really exciting to me. And I love my trade compliance nerddom in that world, and I love my trade compliance team, my crew. But this was a step that I took that was I think the right one for me, that allowed me to kind of branch out into being that customer focused, really interface to our international customers that I wanted to be. So here I am, slinging airplanes.
Yeah, slinging airplanes around the world. I'm going to say 3 things. First of all, if you became a trade attorney, you could not be my bestie. If you become an attorney, we couldn't be cool anymore.
Then that's out. It's out.
We would not have been very good friends. Number 2, one of my favorite ITAR stories ever is my friend Jeff Simpson, who went to Maine Maritime Academy with me. We call him Homer. Homer had gotten into a tiff with some of his sales weasels, and he he walked in to a sales meeting with a copy of the ITAR.
Oh God.
Okay, so and you and I both know ITAR is not like, it's not a 500-page book. I mean, it's a relatively small document.
Pretty short.
But you have to know it inside and out.
You do.
So Homer walked in there and he said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you guys one more training. I'm going to give you all one more warning to stop making my life hell. Because the next time you're going to learn the ITAR through osmosis, because I'm going to hit you in the head with this book until the knowledge of it seeps into your tiny little brains.
Yeah, that's a speech I think I could have written as well. Yeah, I think all of us in that world really wanted to give some people some book learning with the ITAR.
Especially sales weasels.
Tactically.
Yeah. And then lastly, I don't think that you've I think you buried the lead with regards to your team. You've got some pretty heavy hitters, some real slingers over there. Some people really
they're the best of the best. Yeah, they're the best of the best.
It's like ninjas. They're like the Navy SEALs of trade compliance over
there. They are, as Pete Mento says, the weaponized nerds.
Weaponized nerds of Sierra Nevada Corporation.
That's right.
Wonderful. I love them all. I can't wait till I can talk to them again and not get sued. Oh, that's a whole other podcast that we'll do in 8 months. Anyway.
Bring your alerts, bring your friends.
Yeah, nerd alert. So just before we get into the other stuff, you have 2 little kids that are adorable.
I do.
You have a husband who you still will not tell me what he does for a living. So whenever anybody asks me, I just say that he's a contract killer. And you live in Colorado.
Correct.
So I think what everybody wants to know is, are you high right now?
Man, no, unfortunately. Those of us in the federal contracting world have to just say no.
Yeah.
But yeah, living in Colorado, I think it's calmed down a little bit now that a few other states have come online. But yeah, it's been a big topic of the world here in Colorado for a couple of years.
You poor thing.
Yeah.
Good for home prices.
It's been great for home prices. I like to hope optimistically that the housing hike is not strictly tied to the weed, but I'm sure it has something to do with the attraction, at least in the beginning.
A girl can dream. Yeah. Okay. So, something no one ever talks enough about, and it doesn't, people are very good at import compliance. There's a lot of them because a lot of what people do in import compliance gets you a check back. It's duty drawback and all that madness. So people in our business sort of get pushed towards that side of what we do because they're hoping somewhere down the line they can bring value to the company they work for by giving them some money.
Yeah.
Export compliance, it's not like that. Export compliance tends to be a heavily regulated environment for companies that make a mistake once and then they never make a mistake again.
Yeah.
So why did you end up being an export nerd? How did that happen? Primarily. You're both sides of the fence, but you are primarily an export nerd.
I am primarily an export nerd, and I think there are typically 2 teams. You're either import or you're export. There are very few people that cross over, despite the fact that we can be friends. I think I became an export nerd mostly because it was a time in the industry in aerospace and defense where people were just starting to get fined a lot of money for export violations. There were a lot of, big fines and penalties, people going to jail, stuff like that in the news that was very noteworthy. And so companies were starting to pay attention to the export side as well. It wasn't so much a matter of, on the import side, we can save some money. It's a matter of we can avoid going to prison and we can avoid, huge multi-million-dollar, sometimes hundreds of $1 million in fines and penalties. And so it was kind of the beginning of, or during the beginning of a pretty major increase in awareness in trade regulations, export regulations in particular. And that was my first out of the gate. I sort of fell into exports before I touched imports because of that risk aversion that especially aerospace and defense companies have related to their sensitivity of their products and what's at risk if they don't follow those regulations. But that said, the regs were changing every single day based on the technologies that were changing every single day. And, as you know, over the last 15 years or so, the technological advancements that have occurred, nobody's been able to keep up with. Certainly not our regulators in the U.S. government, who move at the pace of the U.S. government. So I found that I could have a pretty solid impact pretty immediately by diving into those regs and not just looking at them from the perspective of the black and white and here's what we have to do to comply. Here's how we avoid going to jail. I'm the no guy. you ask me if you can export something, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no here. I'm going to say no there. I'm going to say, maybe over here. Instead of that approach, I kind of found over the years that taking the approach of, I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to find the solution that best benefits the company and that navigates these regulations, instead of following the regulations, navigating the regulations in a way that benefits the company. To me was, I think, refreshing to a lot of companies who had been stuck with a no man for a long time, who had, the trade compliance geek in the corner who knew those regulations inside and out, but took great pride in telling the company, no, you can't do that. And so I think I found that the companies that I worked for were excited by someone that could take those regulations, make sure that you didn't violate anything, but also use them to your advantage and use them as really a competitive advantage as well, compared to their competition that might just look at them at face value and say, oh, can't do that. We would find a way to do it within the structure of the regulations better than other companies could do it. And that to me was super exciting. We could actually benefit the bottom line in a positive way instead of in a negative way and saying, no, these markets are all off limits to you. We could find ways to do business better than others could and more strategically than others could.
Well, it's a very precise business too. The export compliance side of things, the import side, I'm not going to say that it's sloppy. That's not fair. I think that there's a lot more latitude to make mistakes and to be able to recover from those mistakes, as opposed to exports when if you step in it with exports, you're in a lot of trouble. So the people like you and I, right? So we have conversations with people all the time in our world because we all know each other. We start talking about export compliance. There's a hush over the crowd in the room. What happened? Tell me, what do you need help with? Yeah. And it's import compliance where everyone's got 50 different ways to solve it. Now make a phone call. Don't worry. And I don't want to be cavalier about it, but when it comes to the kind of things you're talking about doing, you have a slip up. And like you said, people are in orange jumpsuits making pine cone ashtrays at the federal penitentiary.
Yeah. It's not a matter of calculated risks. And I think on the import side, it is at some level, it's a matter of calculated risks at some degree. But on the export side, those risks that are real are way too heavy to take on. And so it's not really apples to apples when I think you look at both sides of that equation.
If there's a lot of young people, it's a shocking number. So we have about 5,000 subscribers and 7,000, 8,000 people listen to this. And probably half of those will be under the age of 25. And they're trying to, first of all, trying to move out of their parents' basement. And second of all, they're trying to, step one, baby steps, kids. Step two, they're trying to establish themselves as trade professionals. So what I like to say to folks is specialize, definitely know your crap and throw yourselves at the problem. If you had to give this pile of misguided idiots who want to get into our business some advice on export compliance and becoming an export compliance professional, what are some of the things that come to mind?
Oh man, those poor souls have no idea what's
they don't
for them. But if I had to give some advice, and I think some of this is probably going to be relevant to most career fields, but particularly in trade, there are a lot of different directions you can go. As you mentioned, you can specialize, you can focus on imports, you can go out and get your broker's license. God bless you. You can really try to hone in on a number of different areas. My recommendation is early on, do it all. Don't say no to anything. Really gather up as much experience as you possibly can. Work every product, work every angle, work every element of the business that you possibly can so that you can figure out, one, what you're good at, and two, what you're passionate about. And I think that those always have to be interconnected. I've told my own team and I tell people that I work with, I'm not going to be good at something if I'm not passionate about it. If I can't have any passion for it, I'm gonna be terrible. So figure out what it is. I mean, you're gonna have jobs that you don't like. You're gonna have projects that you don't like, but get through them, and do the best that you possibly can, build relationships along the way, and find those elements of that field or a different field that you're really passionate about. And I think that's where you're going to excel. If people can see the excitement that you have for something as boring as trade compliance or, import brokerage, whatever it might be.
Bite your tongue. It's exciting stuff.
But I think if you can find that passion for something like that, people will listen to you, and people will hear what you have to say, and they'll be able to understand what you're explaining to them much better than if you just are rotely going through your day, checking boxes and, reciting black and white regulations or the HTS.
There are those nerds. Now you, you're a broker, right?
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
Loser. But there are professional designations for export compliance, right? Aren't there things people can study?
There are a number of programs in schools that surprisingly, an increasing number of educational programs that are growing in both the export and the import functions, but especially on the trade compliance side, because before, say the last 5 to 8 years, really, it was something that was OJT. It wasn't something that you could go to college for. I know that, in neither of my undergraduate or my graduate degree programs, there wasn't a program that really touched on trade compliance, or really, barely touched on duties and taxes and import related topics either. So now there are many educational programs, and certainly executive level programs that you can get into after starting your career to enhance your portfolio and your resume, for sure.
When you go to a party, because I know you're a social butterfly, and it's not amongst our people, not amongst our tribe, and they say, "So what do you do for a living?" What do you answer with?
I think that's easy. That's an easier question now than it was when I did strictly trade compliance. I think now I can say I sell ISR aircraft, and ISR related solutions for international governments and militaries. If you ask my kids, I think my son thinks that I am an aircraft mechanic.
Nice.
Which is a real bad idea. I don't think anybody wants me trying to fix airplanes. And my daughter thinks I talk for a living, because she sees me on the phone and she sees me typing, so she thinks I talk for a living, which is pretty true. But at parties, yeah, I think it's certainly easier now. In the past, you would definitely get that I'm gonna walk away kind of look when you said you do international trade compliance. People don't really know what that means.
Well, my problem always when I tell people that I'm a trade nerd and I do trade compliance is all the concussions I get from all the women throwing their hotel room keys and their underwear at me. Just they're so blown away. People are this has got to be the most unsexy, the most just nobody's like, I want to grow up and I want to be a trade professional. There's nothing at all about what we do that you would market a soft drink from,
No, we're not marketing any soft drinks, but I think it's a sexy field to be in.
I think you're drunk. You got to stop drinking. You got to stop drinking at lunch, Abby. There's nothing sexy about what we do. We tell people no all day long. We fight about regulations. You and I and like 3 other people could get in a room and we could absolutely beat each other up verbally on disagreeing about the most minute detail about something that's not going to matter, but we're going to make it matter, damn it.
That's true. That's true.
People in logistics are at least moving crap around the world. We're just arguing about rules, right?
At times, yeah, we are just arguing about rules. But I think I don't look at it that way, and I don't think you really look at it that way either. And I think there's an argument to be made for the however many people that are listening, because they evidently care about this stuff as well. That I'll back up for a second. So I think what we do realistically is at its most basic level, problem solving. people want to sell stuff beyond our borders because they want to make money. They want to make a lot of money, and there are limited markets within the US. So they want to sell stuff internationally, or they want cheaper things. So they want to bring things in from other countries.
Yeah.
Well, that's hard. That's hard to do. There's some complications there. So they need to bring in somebody to help make that process easier. And so many career fields are really about that. They're really about taking problems and untangling these big, hairy messes. Well, I think those of us in trade and international business in general, we had that mentality of loving to fix things and loving to untangle those puzzles and big messes, but that wasn't enough for us. We wanted to ratchet it up a level and say, I'm not just going to solve these problems on a domestic scale in English with American culture. I'm going to take it to some other country where they don't speak my language. They're in a different time zone. I have to cross, borders through customs to get to their location. I have to have a translator to talk to them. We want to ratchet up the game a little bit. It's not Super Mario Brothers to us. We want to take it to a very international scale, and it makes that problem more complex. But I think it also makes those solutions even more gratifying.
Okay. So 2 questions then. Worst mess you ever had to clean up that you can talk about. There's a lot of what we do we can't talk about. And 2, I want you to admit that those glasses aren't real. They're just like glass. They're glass lenses, and they don't actually see anything.
They are real. They're
such a lie.
Necessary.
You're just trying to look smart. That's all it is. You're just trying to
necessary vision correction. No, the dark hair was an attempt to look smarter than I am. Not the glasses.
Are you trying to intimate that people think that a blonde woman would not be as smart? Because you're pretty damn smart. I don't think anybody would make that distinction.
Nah, it was just time for a change. 20 years of blonde was just time for a change. But I think I'm taken more seriously. Maybe not more intelligent, but I think I'm taken more seriously as a brunette.
Whatever. Walk in with a baseball bat. Again, you're the lady who said no all the time. No one's not taking you seriously. So biggest mess you've had to clean up you can talk about.
Biggest mess I've had. I mean, there's something I can't talk about, but I guess one of the most interesting ones that I had to clean up that threw me for the biggest loop, and this was a number of years into my career when I thought I couldn't be surprised anymore. There's definitely one that always comes to mind, and some of my trade geek friends have probably heard this one. But I'm sitting in my office, and of course these things always come up at like 4:00 Friday afternoon, as they tend to do. And I get a phone call, and it's from one of our supplier program managers who's like kind of off her rocker anyway, right? She's a little excitable, and so she calls me, and I'm like, all right, I'll take one more call before I go home for the day.
Dumb.
And I answer the phone, and all she says on the other end of the line is radioactive penguins.
I love this story.
And I'm like, man, I
is that a band name? Yeah. What do you call it?
I thought it was her garage band name. Yeah. Yeah. Her call sign. I don't know. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, let it sink in for a second. That's actually all I need to tell you. Wow. And I sat there for a second, and I was like, oh, man. I said some bad words for sure, but it was actually happening. And so I had so many questions, and I said, first, tell me what the emergency is, because I know this is an emergency on some level. Some kind of radioactive penguins are transiting someplace, because that's what I did. Import-export problems was the name of the game. And she said, yeah, they're being imported, and they're on a vessel coming in, and they're about to shut down the port.
Wow.
Just blown away. I'm like, okay, so why are we shutting down the port? How did these penguins get radioactive? What's going on? I mean, it was a terrible mess. And at the end of the day, what was going on was there were dead radioactive penguins that had been collected post-mortem. They were penguins that were being trapped, and environmental researchers and scientists, tracked them with radioisotope tags. And so they at some level become radioactive. And we were importing them post-mortem, frozen, to do research on them back at a U.S. university. And so they had to be imported. And so there was a bit of a fire drill. It was a contract that our company had just taken over. And so nobody was really straight on who had initiated the export from a foreign location of these radioactive penguins and why they were coming in and exactly to whom they were coming in. But they were coming and they were like 100 miles out, ready to shut down the port. So we dug in and we determined that we had a lot of exemptions available to us. On one side of the house, we had Nuclear Regulatory Commission issues to deal with. We had issues to deal with. We had plant and wildlife. We had fish and wildlife. We had all of the things. Everybody was on the phone calls and getting the clearances to bring these things in. Needless to say, these poor radioactive penguins were brought in, and the research continued. But
Abby saves the day.
It was an exciting 24 hours. I can't say I saved the day. There was certainly a team effort to make that happen. But
did you have to keep bringing them in over and over again, or was it a one-time thing?
Oh no, we brought them in over and over again. Yeah. It was the first instance on our particular contract, but not the last. Not the last.
That just sounds awful.
Those poor penguins. But yeah.
Nuclear penguins. I love it. Okay. Well, I wanted to go over a couple of interesting things that are going on in the news.
All right.
So we can start with this one. Did you see my last LinkedIn post?
Yes.
Wakanda
forever.
Wakanda forever. Yes. So
that makes me so happy. And please tell me it was intentional.
So here's what happened.
You got to tell the story.
I will tell a story. So there is a listing of countries that the United States has a free trade agreement with that Commerce puts out. And it is an electronic list. And it's kind of important. It's kind of important because a lot of software feeds off of it. People make really big decisions about, we're in the middle of a trade war. So lots of folks want to know who we have a free trade agreement with. And there was a graduate student who was doing some data analytics. It came across the fact that on the list of countries that the United States currently has a free trade agreement with was the fictional country Wakanda from the Marvel Avengers universe that Black Panther is from, that T'Challa is the leader of. And this is how much of a nerd I am. I can keep going about what is Wakanda is about. And so this comes out today. And my friend Jason O'Brien, I don't know if you know Jason, he's with KPMG now. He used to be with Amber Road. He's just awesome. He's awesome. He puts his post up, and I thought it was like an Onion article. I thought it was someone just playing around, but this is so specific that it has to be true. And you start looking at it, it's true. So I guess what happened is the folks that put together the software system and were teaching each other how to use it. They used Wakanda as a joke placeholder template. Nobody caught it.
Right.
And so currently, Wakanda, the ghost African nation of Wakanda, is a free trade country. So they're and as of our,
I'm ready to sell them some airplanes.
You should. I bet they'd buy them from you. As of right before we came on here, they were still on the listing. So they haven't taken them off yet. So there's this laughing stock that's happening about Wakanda forever, everywhere, and no one has gotten this thing taken off yet.
I love it so much. And I can only hope in my heart of sarcastic hearts that whoever put it there knew exactly what they were doing and did it intentionally. I think it's great. I hope it stays.
I hope it stays for a while so that I keep getting screenshots of it. And it's just it's so stupid. It's so stupid. All of these things, heaven forbid that we don't publish something right or make a mistake and the government comes down on us like the hand of the gods. But here,
it's beautiful. Yeah.
They screw this up. They're like, oh, yeah. No. This is the most powerful country in the world, the largest commercial consumer in the world, and we put a fake country in there. I can't get enough of it. I think it's
No,
wonderful.
I think it's great. One of my favorite countries to use in training exercises and things like that is Zamunda.
Zamunda.
And about half the group gets it, and about half the group doesn't. And most of the millennials out there are not going to know about Zamunda. But you know what Zamunda is.
Hell yeah. Coming to America. Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
They're making this country and coming to America. Yeah.
They're making a sequel.
Oh man, I had not heard that.
Yeah. So my daughter this weekend, we were in Dallas, and my daughter loves stand-up comedy. She particularly likes Jim Gaffigan and the such. So I'm always trying to introduce her to new comedy, which is hard because I am filthy. So everything I listen to, every friend I've ever had that's worked in comedy, they don't say the kind of things that a 13-year-old who's relatively sheltered should be listening to.
Right.
But I decided to play my daughter the Ice Cream Man sketch by Eddie Murphy on Saturday. And so you know what to expect, you know? And he leads into that sketch saying, anybody else here hot? Because I could really use an ice cream if the Ice Cream Man comes around. And she's like, and she's drinking a milkshake while this is going on. And the first time he screams, ice cream, really loud, she had a legitimate spit take where we're in this rental and like chocolate milkshake just goes blah, everywhere like a Jackson Pollock. And she was holding her face just like.
That's so great.
My God, it was so awesome. So,
and you get to introduce these things to her. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, the first comedy concert I ever took my daughter to was Jim Gaffigan in Manchester, and she was so happy. And we're at the Verizon Center here in town, which isn't very big. And she said, Daddy, did you ever do comedy to a crowd this big? And I said, no, never, not once. I said, but I do talk at things that have this many people in it. She said, well, that's not nearly as cool. And that's when you realize it doesn't matter how many big speeches I can give, it doesn't matter how many airplanes and spying systems that you sell. Our kids are never going to think we're cool. Ever. That's
probably true. I mean, my kids are still really little, and occasionally they think that I'm pretty cool right now, but I can see it fading quickly. I mean, my 4-year-old proposed marriage to me this weekend, and I had to break his little heart. But yeah, at that age, they're little. They still kind of believe that I'm cool, but it's evaporating.
Did he buy a ring? Did he ask your dad first? Did he go through all the necessary?
Oh no. He did get on his knee though. And I said, Lucian, why do you want to marry me? He goes, so I can kiss you anytime I want.
Wow.
I feel like he's setting the stage. I think he's just setting the stage like I'm done. It's over. Whatever this kid wants. Christmas is coming up. He can have anything.
Anything he wants now. Well done. I never had anything cool like that to say to my mother. I was usually too busy fending off the punches from my parents for whatever dumb thing I'd recently done.
I believe it.
Well behaved. They're sweet kids. They don't do stupid things.
Oh, they do funny things, but yeah, I mean, nothing too terrible just yet.
Okay. Well,
we've only had one major stitching event with the ER involved, so pretty solid track record.
So I'm noticing that you have a telescope in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Is this your attempt to try to? And it's pointed at a wall, by the way.
It is pointed at a wall. I mean, it's put away right now. We're not stargazing.
Okay, so you want me to believe that you pack up the kids and you go to some nice pasture and you stare up at the Milky Way?
No, this is Colorado. You just go in the backyard.
Let's just go to a dispensary and take some mushrooms. You can stare at the Milky Way.
No, this is mostly my nerdy aerospace engineer husband who has all of the gadgets for space lurking and you name it.
I love that's why. So apparently, there's a place in Colorado you can go where you can legitimately see the Milky Way. It's so dark.
Yeah, I've not been there. I've heard that there are some places that are high enough up and away from the cities that you can see the stars amazingly well.
I've got to do that because I'm a big fan of sitting there and realizing just how much the universe doesn't care about me and how insignificant I am. And,
contemplating life.
Yeah, like Rogan says, we're talking apes on a floating rock in the middle of infinity. It definitely, man.
True.
It hits home. Yeah. Okay. So I know you're short on time, so I want to get a couple other things before because couldn't make enough time for me. You're all
The time zones were challenging. We don't know how to play that game, apparently.
sure. Yeah. It was kind of a problem. What's the week before Christmas and everybody's super busy.
True.
So all right. So if you had to talk to somebody who was in import compliance about switching over to export compliance, what are some things that they should probably consider doing? Would you have them start on things like classifications and ECCNs, get them involved in licensing? What do you think would be the most valuable skill for them to obtain and master quickly?
I think two things. I think one's reading the news on export control reform and what's happening now, so that they can get their heads around what changes have occurred through the process of export control reform and what's forthcoming, where we stand, depending on what industry they're in or if they have a particular industry yet, talking to their companies about what the impacts are of the changes to the regulations to their products, and maybe getting to know those changes before they happen, knowing what those looming deadlines are, I think can really, really help them set themselves up for success on the export side, if they're looking to do more exporting, to be very, very present and in the know on what's going on. I think as far as getting a basic level of understanding of exports from the import side, it's relatively easy. I mean, regs are regs, rules are rules. They're written differently. They're structured differently within the ITAR and within the Export Administration regulations. But start reading. There's a deliberate framework to both of them. They both frustrate the hell out of a lot of people, but there's a deliberate framework there. Don't expect them to be the same deliberate framework. Read them differently. It's like you've got your romance novels, and then you've got your historical fiction. They're totally different kinds of documents, despite the fact that some things are aligning. Don't expect them to be the same thing, but start reading and start talking to export professionals about what they do on a day-to-day and what's important to them. If you work in a company where you're doing imports, you very likely have someone working exports as well. The easiest way to get into exports in that regard is to just ask if you can help. I can assure you that they will always say yes. You can always help out with something, and that will, allow them to get a little bit of something, started on the export side.
Was that a dog that just barked?
It was my huge dog. I have a giant Bernese Mountain Dog, and I think he just suspected the Amazon Prime guy. So
okay,
he gave him a little.
Now, every podcast, there are 3 questions I ask people who attend, and I actually think I know some of the answers for your 3 questions. I'm going to add a 4th at the end. Okay.
Oh.
All right. So, it has a lot to do with our friendship. So, question number 1: first car you ever had. What was it? How'd you get it? What happened to it?
Ooh, okay. First car I ever had, it's kind of a jaded story because I only had it for a hot second. Was a Nissan.
Was it in a craps game?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a craps game. It was a hand-me-down from my big brother. My big brother had a hand-me-down car, and it was a Nissan Datsun combo deal. It was like the era that they became one or switched over. Anyway, it was an old Nissan Datsun Sentra kind of thing. And my super cool older brother was really into Metallica and Megadeth, and to his credit, I enjoyed them as well. But he had blacked out all of the windows, and he had removed everything from the trunk and put like giant subwoofers in the trunk. And it had this big sticker on the back that said "No Fear" on it.
Wow. So cool.
This was 16-year-old Abby's car that she was about to inherit. And it was also a stick shift. And so I ponied up and I was ready to accept this beast. And took it for a couple spins. me navigating the manual transmission was not the best idea. And I not only had no sense of direction, but I wasn't the most coordinated kid, if you can believe that. And I think my father saw me pull into the driveway with my blacked out windows and my no fear stickers, subwoofers blasting. And he was like,
not happening.
That's not happening. That's not happening. So it lasted like 48 hours, and I hissy fitted my way to a better model.
What did you end up driving?
I ended up driving a Dodge Avenger.
I remember those.
Yeah. So it wasn't bad. I was pretty happy with that one. It was quite a step up from the Datsun.
Well, daughters get whatever they want. So
this is true.
You were an athlete in high school, weren't you?
I was. Yeah, I was a swimmer mostly. Ran track, volleyball.
Yeah, judo, MMA, cage fighting.
I was pretty small, so had a.
Oh yeah. Flyweight division. Okay, question number 2.
Yes.
First job that you ever had, what was it? And what did they pay you? Like, and I'm talking, you had to get a check for your work. It wasn't just, I was a babysitter or I picked apples when the season was right. I'm talking like you got a check and a W-2, first job you ever had, and what'd you get paid?
Right. First job I ever had that I had an actual check was lifeguarding and teaching swimming lessons.
Yeah. I
Pretty
get that a
sweet
lot.
gig, hang out, get a tan all day.
Work on your tan. Hopefully nobody dies.
Yell at little kids. Don't let anybody die. It's pretty laid back.
That's awesome. Did any die on your watch? Do you have any?
Nobody died on my watch. Nobody died. We had some fakers. Yeah, Sandlot style kids that would.
Wendy is it peppercorn?
Wendy peppercorn. Yeah. But you could I always waited them out. You could tell, like if you saw them swimming before, they're not drowning. Give them a good 30, 45 seconds to figure it out.
Work for it. Yeah, I think that's great. All right. And what'd you get paid? Do you remember?
Oh man, my first, like $4.75 an hour, maybe. It was not much.
The struggle was real.
The struggle was real.
All right. So, question number 3. I am your fairy godmother. So we can that this is true already. All right. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Right. Now imagine I have a magic wand, not unlike my Sharpie. And I can wave the magic wand at any job you've ever wanted. So I could be out of the industry. Talent has nothing to do with you. If you could be doing anything right now, aside from the silly, ridiculous job you have now, what would that job be?
Man, anything.
Dream job.
That's tough. I like my job. I do. I enjoy my job. But I think I'd have to do something that didn't require working so hard. But I do have to say that if you're my fairy godmother, that's going to definitely give me nightmares. I don't know that I want to wake up to that.
That would look great in a dress with some wings and yeah. That would be awesome.
Like the Red Bull guys. No.
Yeah.
Can't picture
the
that.
Dream job. When you were a little girl, there was something you wanted to be.
I would say what I wanted to be when I was a little girl, totally different than what I want to be as a big girl. When I was a little girl, I think I wanted to join the Peace Corps, and that sounded glorious. I prefer like Marriott style of living to that these days. I don't really want to get that dirty, but maybe like yoga instructor on some island in Bali sounds pretty great. You could do that.
Everybody just taking a deep breath and just let all that tension out. That's all just, that's no good at all. All right. So question that only you get because we like the same music so much. All right. So you and I are going to go do a drive-by, like trade nerd style. What a trade nerd drive-by. I don't know what that would look like. So we're gonna. I
imagine it's you and me on a Friday night.
Yeah.
No friends.
Oh man, yeah. I'm driving too. So you're gonna have to throw the iTar at them. Actually, no. We'd hit him with an old school metal tariff. That's what we would hit him with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a drive-by.
The big book. Yes.
Yep. We're gonna take a sucker out. You got to pick 3 songs for the playlist on the way over there. 3 old school 80s, 90s, thousands hip hop R&B songs that we listen to on the way to commit a felony.
Wow. Oh man.
I'll tell you mine when you're done.
I think I'm gonna go in reverse.
Okay.
I think I gotta go in reverse because I got finished with Ice Cube. It was a good day.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
We gotta roll out in that end of the night with the spinners and the.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna end with.
Don't think of the irony that the two of the whitest people anyone's ever seen are having this conversation right now.
Right, we're talking about swinging regulations.
Yeah. Someone's wife and mom with two little kids is talking about songs where you're going to murder somebody too. But go ahead. Yeah. There's your first
What's
song.
next? What's next?
What's the next song?
I'm a girl. I'm from St. Louis, so I have to throw some Nelly. I gotta throw some Nelly in there. Probably Country Grammar. We could kick it off with that. I feel like it's symbolic. You have to have calculated songs. I'd be remiss to not say Snoop Dogg, but I'm not going to say Snoop Dogg because I'm a feminist and I'm not going to leave my ladies out. So not that that's a token vote, because it's not a token vote.
No.
I'm going to go Salt and Pepper.
I would have said Missy Elliott if I was going to play around with that. Salt and Pepper's good.
Elliott, love Missy Elliott, but I don't think that it would go with the vibe of Ice Cube and Nelly. I don't think it would fit in the middle. So I'm gonna go Salt and Pepper.
Okay. All right. So if I had to pick three, we would probably we'd start with Tupac, I Get Around. That would be the first song because that gets you a little excited. These don't sound like murder songs, do they?
We're murdering people with the law.
Yeah, it's true. We're nerds. This is how nerds would roll.
We're murdering.
Yeah, we're murdering the regulations. The second song would probably be I can't even say the title of the song, but it's a DMX song. I'm sure you can imagine which one it is. And then after we've killed everybody and after we've laid waste on in nerd murder, I think I would probably do Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot at the end of it. That would be the three in the playlist as we're passing the 40 back and forth, trying to get our story straight before the cops pull us over.
The 40, yes.
That's precisely how I would do it. Well,
thank you for making me feel cool for a hot second.
Well, we are pretty cool for a couple of nerds, but I hate new hip hop. I can't stand it. So for me, it's like music. I say this to my buddy Hector all the time. Music died to me in like 2006. I don't want to hear any more hip hop after that. I'm done. And if Biggie and Tupac wouldn't have liked it, I'm not going to like it either. And I have some real serious Kanye problems. Anyway, I know you have another call to get on and that you can't spend more time talking to me, but thank you so much for joining us. You are my favorite little nerd to hang out with. And hopefully I'll get a chance to see you in the new year and you can tell me how exciting this job is or isn't, I guess.
Thank you so much, Pete. Always a pleasure. Always a good time. Call me anytime.
Oh, please. Yeah, definitely. And everyone, thank you for joining us again. As always, we are brought to you by the good people at the World Trade Centers and our friends at Cap Logistics. You can learn more about Cap Logistics at caplogistics.com. And if you need help trying to get yourself, much like Abby was talking about in the beginnings of your trade nerd journey, the World Trade Centers are an excellent resource. You can learn more about them on the websites that are posted with the information about these podcasts. Abby, thank you again. I'm sure we'll have you on again, and we'll probably have more inappropriate conversations about hip hop.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.